belongs to my son. I'll never forget what happened to me here. Robbie, show him who the best in the world is.
My father missed it in '67. Gary Wells missed it in 1980. After a 10-year dream, I'm going to conquer the fountains tonight.
Tonight, live from Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada, Showtime Event Television presents The Knievel Legend Continues. It is a warm, sultry night in Las Vegas, the scene right out of Hollywood. Only this is for real. Upwards of 50,000 expected here at Caesars for an astounding event. They come from everywhere, all walks of life, many restrained behind the makeshift fencing. It's not very often the famous Las Vegas Strip comes to a dramatic halt, but understand the magnitude of this evening, and you can see why. The mood tense, almost eerie, certainly curious, as this big crowd gathers to see a young man attempt to become the first to conquer Caesars. Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Albert, and welcome to one of the most extraordinary spectacles you will ever see. We are situated up above the anxious crowd between Caesars Palace and the Flamingo Hotel with a majestic backdrop, the famous fountains of Caesars. The drama and tension engulfing this event, mind-boggling, as young Robbie Knievel attempts to avenge his father's ill-fated mission at this very site 21 years ago. And he intends to make the jump with no hands. I'll be joined shortly by veteran Dave Dials, who'll serve as interviewer and field reporter, plus motorsports expert Dave Despain. One thing we should point out immediately, Robbie Knievel has trained hard and prepared diligently for this jump. He is a professional. Don't get any wild ideas that anybody, including you, can perform such a dangerous stunt. When Evel Knievel risked his life jumping the fountains of Caesars Palace back in 1967, Robbie was only 5 years old. But he has seen the dramatic replay of his dad's crash here so many times, he feels as if he was actually here himself. There are many similarities and differences between the jump of '67 and the jump you're about to see tonight. The takeoff, the distance, and the all-important, if not crucial, landing area were major considerations in '67. They are indeed major factors here in '89. Here now, a closer look as we present a technical breakdown of tonight's jump with our expert, Dave Despain.
The deceptive serenity of a flower garden provides the backdrop for the dangerous mission that Robbie Knievel is about to fly. It's 400 feet from that point to the ramp. 400 feet in which Robbie has to reach a speed of 90 miles an hour if he's going to clear the fountains. That means the first part of this trip is going to be a drag race, hard on the throttle, banging up through the gears and trying desperately to get to speed. Right here at the 200-foot mark, he has to make a decision. He can jam on the brakes here and still get stopped without plunging into the fountain or bouncing off that hedge. But past this point, he can't get stopped. It's the point of no return. And his only option is to run full throttle up the ramp and over the fountain, to glory or to disaster. It's a choice his father faced 22 years ago.
This jump is much more difficult than any other jump in the world. In other words, because of the fountains being in your way, right in the middle of the jump, you can't make a test run and go around it. The problem with this jump is that once you're back there in that fenced-off area, you're committed. It's like going down the runway in a fighter jet or taking off of an aircraft carrier. You don't get no second chance at it. You have got to be on the money when you go.
When my dad did it in '67, there's only really one place to jump it now, and that's right in the center between the 6th and 7th tree. When he jumped, he was out towards the strip more, and I think, I was only 5 years old, I wasn't even here, but I think the wall was way over there on Flamingo Road, so he had nothing to worry about. And when Gary Wells jumped it in 1980, he had the new walls, the pillars, and the underground parking. and of course he hit the wall. But I've got a new pillar that holds up the people mover that wasn't there when Wells jumped, and it's like 60 feet from my landing ramp, and it's going to be tight.
The Knievels, very different men. Evil big league showman, Robbie, party animal. Father, notorious crasher. Son, skilled and talented jumper. Their lives intersect at these plywood ramps.
The takeoff ramp is the most important. The landing ramp's got to be wide and long, and that gradual slope just helps out a ton on the suspension. But the takeoff ramp I designed, and out of experience of seeing my dad's old ramp. Good, I know. My ramp will be 9 foot high, my takeoff ramp. His takeoff ramps were only 6 foot high. I've hired my takeoff ramp by 3 feet, and I add a kicker onto the bottom of it. So it makes things a little smoother. I like painting my own stripe, helping build the ramps, and I get the feel of everything. Feel more confident. I only got myself to blame.
Robbie learned that from his father, the ultimate truth of the business. The daredevil always flies solo. Robbie's flight path will carry him roughly 180 feet across those fountains, which hold such fascination for motorcycle jumpers and for those who hype their feats of daring. Yes, there have been longer jumps, but the fountains, they stand unconquered. Robbie will launch his attempt from a 4 foot wide, 38 foot long takeoff ramp. It is 9 feet high, 12.5 degrees. Most significantly, the highest takeoff jump that he has ever attempted. Most critical to success is the landing ramp. At 12 feet wide, it's 3 times the width of the takeoff, 7 feet high, 75 feet long, and provides the most gentle landing possible. That's critical because the real obstacles lie ahead, and we'll get to those in a moment. The portion of the jump that makes headlines, the 150-foot gap, 30 more than his father jumped, Robbie will clear it at a height of 23 to 26 feet. The many changes since '67 make this attempt more difficult, but bike evolution works in Robbie's favor.
Back in 1967, the bike that my dad used, I mean, there was like half the suspension that there is on my bike today, and what Gary Wells used. And, you know, it only takes one little mistake. I mean, these bikes are real high-tech now. They handle great. They got great suspension. They go fast. They stop quick. They got disc brakes. I'll change the handlebars to fit me, the grips. Probably set the shock to my weight, and that's about it.
Modern motorcycles are so good indeed that Robbie doesn't need a lot of modifications. His bone stock motocrosser, water-cooled, makes about 60 horsepower. It's geared to run over 100 miles an hour. Unchanged in this jump equation, 2 things: the looming danger of the fountains and the magnetic appeal of the daredevil personality. Failure here made his father rich and famous. Robbie hopes success at Caesars will do the same for him. This X is the key to that success. It is Robbie's target on the landing ramp, and from here, he must negotiate the obstacles that have added so much danger to this attempt. He wants to hit here very square, get on the brakes hard, and scrub off as much speed as possible. His worst fear is landing over here to the left, because that would put him on a collision course with that new people mover column. Let's take a walk down here and see what Robbie will see, keeping in mind he'll come through here at 80 miles an hour. Now, he figures at that speed, he's only going to get one steering maneuver. And if he has to spend it to dodge that Caesars sign, that first column that holds up the people mover, then he's in trouble. He's liable to end up in the hay bales on the right-hand side, or perhaps worse, veer down into the entrance to the parking ramp and be on a collision course with the second column further down the ramp. What he wants to do is come through this area dead straight and hard on the brakes, slowing down as much as possible. That way, when he gets to about here, he can use his steering maneuver to dodge, dart just a little bit to the left into the waiting arms, the opening, if you will, of the parking ramp. And from there, he'll have 126 feet to safely stop before he hits the hay bales back at the end there, back at the back wall. Now, they mocked this all up in a practice session out in the desert and rehearsed it at 3/4 speed. And in that rehearsal, Robbie's mechanic liked what he saw. He said, based on what he saw there, that Robbie, by the time he gets to here, will be slowed down to the point where he can go anywhere he wants to. I asked Robbie where he'd stop. And he frowned and said, "I don't know. I won't know until I get there."
Just about 100 yards from where Robbie hopes to safely land, there's a sort of an eerie confidence pervading this whole atmosphere. It's been that way all week. Robbie, it's true that you have a better bike, you have a better ramp than did your father more than 21 years ago. But you are attempting something where there's an 0 for 2 record, your father and Gary Wells in 1980. And in a sense, it's a more difficult jump. What makes you think you can do it?
It's the year for entertainment. I could use a little help tonight. It's been a long day. I'm a little nervous finally it comes down to the jump. I've been waiting for this for 10 years, and it's already here.
Why do it at all?
Well, I've been in this business forever. There'll never be another Evel Knievel again, but you're looking at one guy who's his son who learned from him that will make this jump. And I like being an entertainer. I like being in the spotlight. And I think I've had the most experience out of anybody as far as to make this jump. So tonight I'm going to show everyone I can do it. And then I won't be known as this crazy daredevil. I'll be known as a great entertainer.
When you made your final inspection today, and when you did your practice runs yesterday, what was going through your mind in the way of final preparations, final thoughts?
Well, today I went out and made some practice jumps. I jumped about 120 feet to where I landed. I'm going to land here at about 180 or 190. The X is marked 180. And I'll be hitting down there somewhere. If I can just miss that first pillar and get the brakes, I should be in good shape. I should be able to swerve to the left and stop before I get to the back wall.
Robbie, final question. You call it paranoia, or you might call it the suspicion of two reasonable men, but all week long, you and your father somehow seem persuaded that Gary Wells, who failed here in 1980, will try to do something, even in these last minutes, to at least upstage you, or at worst sabotage this whole event. You're worried about that?
I'm not worried about it at all. I'm way past a guy like Gary Wells. Gary had his shot. I think he knows it's my shot. I think he's going to stay clear. There's no possible way for him to come in here in the first place. And we had a little talk with him earlier anyway.
Your people met with his people. Are you saying that?
Good friend of mine, Spanky Spangler, had a little talk with Gary. He's known him for a long time. Besides that, I got Super Dave and Boom Boom Mancini here ready to go.
We'll be back.